The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hi, good evening. It's Christine Joanna Hart, and it's my evening show. So welcome to Thursday evening. I'm going to be with you for the next 2 hours, coming in from a very dark and cold, miserable London. I'm going to do my best to bring you an entertaining show. The first half, I'm going to be speaking about Hacked Off and their attack on the super soldier community. On the second half, I'm going to have Anna Jeoffroy, and she is going to be talking about making flower essences and making angel essences. So if you don't want to stay with me for the first half, you can always fast forward to 8 o'clock. And Anna will be with us. She instructs people how to make essences. She runs workshops over in London, and she's very experienced. So I'm looking forward to having a chat with her. So I'm going to start off the show. I'm going to be speaking about Hacked Off and what's been going on with them, and just really I'm going to examine them and my relationship with them as well, and just examine them. The first time I encountered one of the Hacked Off people was when I was asked to go on, I think it was ITN News, and it was just after Andy Coulson was arrested. Somebody rang me and said, would I appear on the news to talk about working for the News of the World and what it was like and my feelings about Andy Coulson being sent to prison. So I agreed, went there, and there was another lady. Oh gosh, I can't remember her name. She was very beautiful, and I went on the news with her. She spoke more than me. She was one of the victims who had been hacked, and so she spoke quite a lot. And actually, I had been hacked myself. A lot of my stories had gone into the Sunday Mirror, and I was being hacked, I think, by Greg Miskiw, who knew I was working and doing various stories. And I was working for The Sun at the time, and all the stories that I was commissioned to work on ended up in the Sunday Mirror. So someone out there was doing it. I don't think it was Glenn Mulcair. It might have been John Boyle. It probably was Greg Miskiw. The second time I came in contact with Hacked Off was through Graham Johnson. Graham Johnson I used to work with on the Sunday Mirror. I brought him along to a Real IRA meeting, which I've written about in my book, and also we did some undercover stuff together. And then I think he had worked at the News of the World, so at that time, I think, yeah, I was doing some free. No, I had been at the News of the World for 10 years, and then I think that was 2000. I can't remember. 2000, I think, when Graham and I first met. And I hadn't seen him since the Sunday Mirror. I hadn't seen him for a long, long time. And he rang me out of the blue and started saying how he was working for Hacked Off and would I meet him. So we had lunch quite a few times. And he said that he was basically getting people who had worked on tabloids in the day to confess different things they'd done for Hacked Off. I thought it was a bit of a weird job, but there we are. Whilst we were having dinner at Kew Gardens, I told him I had worked for The Sun and I'd worked for the Mail for quite a number of years, from the 90s through to 2009. mainly as an investigator, and he was very interested in that. And he said to me that Hacked Off would buy my remittance advices. Now, if I can be clear what a remittance advice is, when you, as a freelancer, when I would work on a story, I would invoice the Daily Mail. Then when they paid me, they would send me what was known as a advice on what I was paid, and it would be detailed, and the date, what I had done, and my payments. And I had many of these, many hundreds of these. Obviously, I'd worked for them for a long time. I'd earned quite a lot from them per year, and I'd enjoyed working for them. I'd done many, many front pages. I didn't have my name on them because I was the investigator. So I wasn't writing, I was investigating, and I was pretty well respected by the Mail. They would ring me and say things like, can we borrow your genius? And of course, if somebody says that to me, I'm gonna put all out to get a good result for them. So I always enjoyed working for them. I worked a lot for Ian Cobain for a long, long time, and he worked me to death. Um, really, really working very hard. I felt like his assistant most of the time because I was just assisting him on stories and standing them up for him. Basically, that's what I did as an investigator. Somebody was talking to me earlier this week and said, "Oh, I thought you were a journalist, not an investigator." I worked for an investigator for many years, and then I became a journalist myself. I still obviously investigate, but I am a journalist. I've earned my stripes, and yes, I do have bylines. I've had bylines in the Sunday Times, bylines in Sunday Express, and bylines in the Daily Mail, and bylines in the News of the World on my stories that I have written. And I'm also a Sunday Times best-selling author, published with Hodder and Staunton. So that is my life. So Graham was earning £5,000 a month, paid for by Max Mosley, who is a hidden member of Hacked Off. So he was on a really good wage, and he said, "Well, you can get involved in this too." So obviously, I hadn't worked for a long, long time because of the phone hacking scandal. Even though I had got my stripes as a journalist, I wasn't being commissioned because I had worked as an investigator, and I had worked for the News of the World for a long, long time. So I was pretty much roped in with all that, even though I wasn't involved in hacking. I didn't hack. I had brought John Boyle in, who was the MI6 connected investigator who brought in cybercrime and hacking. Obviously, the story was that Greg Miskiw nicked his office boy, Glenn Mulcair, and started getting him to hack the Queen or whatever happened. Well, Clive did it, but still, it was Miskiw who brought him in. Miskiw was my old boss at the News of the World. So Graham said, Hacked Off have plenty of money, you can become somebody that works for them. So I thought it was a good idea. I suppose I would have thought working on Tesco checkout was a good idea, just as long as I brought in some kind of income. And so I started having regular meetings with him. He started saying that he was going to pay me to look for these remittances. I lived in the same house for 6 years, I think, and things were everywhere, and I didn't know where they were. So he started saying he would pay me per week to look for them. In the end, I couldn't find them, and I met up with Panorama. There was somebody from Panorama who wanted to do something on the press, doing more investigations than just hacking and how bad it was. So I met with one of their producers, and they said, "Oh, we really want you to find these Daily Mail remittances. We will pay for you to go and stay near your friend's house." Because at the time I said my friend might have them. He had some boxes. So that particular friend lived near Rendlesham Forest, unbelievably. Well, it was a tiny bit away from there, but I thought, well, we'll go, and there was a really nice hotel, and it turned out to be right on the edge of Rendlesham, called Secker Hall. So we stayed there. The BBC paid for it. That is, as a matter of record, it's on the invoices. And I went to my friend's house. He didn't actually have them. So that, we just spent the weekend there. It was quite interesting. I went to Rendlesham Forest. I did have really, I did a show from there with Miles Johnson and Lisa Williams. And it was quite interesting because that night, the first night there, I was abducted by Greys, and I literally was coming in and out of consciousness on this particular abduction. And they had my mouth like really sort of wedged open, really wide open, like when you go to the dentist, and they had all sorts of stuff going into my mouth. I don't know why that has gone on, but I think it's common, but I don't know what they do in the mouth area. But it was kind of horrible. I didn't really like it. Those the greys, those things, those bug eyes, they're actually a cover for something. And gosh, I can't remember what happened back then, but the show is available. It's on YouTube, so you can tune into it if you're interested. What happened there? But it was quite interesting. The BBC were involved, and then next thing, there's the grey involvement. It's kind of odd. A friend of mine was listening to me. I was talking to her on a friend of mine based in Australia, who knows James Bartley, was talking to me one time, and Graham Johnson rang me on my mobile, and she picked up that he was psychic and that in the gaps in the conversation he was trying to mind read me. And I thought, wow, I didn't ever think that of Johnson because I've known him like for years, and and I thought, well, that's interesting. And so then after this is a girl from Basis who I met on Basis, and after that I listened to Johnson whenever he spoke to me, and I did notice that he would ask me something and then go very, 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 very silent. And if I didn't answer, he would just keep really silent. And on those times, I did notice that he would be listening to me in a way that made me feel uncomfortable and that was very, very, very penetrative. And I learnt to block it. It's quite easy if someone is doing this kind of listening to you, to block it. So I just put down shutters and blocked it. But I don't think I would have noticed it if she hadn't have mentioned it. And I mentioned it to Miles Johnson at the time, and he said, "Oh, that was a very clever of her," and it was well spotted actually. And then Graham Johnson invited me to meet a man called Evan Havis, ex-MP, who's very rabid. He's a Jewish gentleman. He's a very rabid supporter of Hacked Off, and we had dinner, and he spoke about how he knew Lily Allen, and she was eager to get this Daily Mail thing done, and also Heather Mills. And Heather Mills had read my book, and she was pleased that I had talked about the scam that was pulled on her by Nick Parker of The Sun. He had roped me in to a scam on Heather Mills, and he had sent her fake emails. And bizarrely, he had given me a fake phone, and to take the call from her. It wasn't my job. It wasn't my investigation. I certainly wouldn't have done it that way. It was pretty amateur the way Nick Parker had done it. And he basically gave me a mobile to speak to her at the end of this ridiculous scam. And of course, Heather Mills said to me when she rang me, "Oh, you're from The Sun." And I'm like, oh, and it was so obvious that she had found out about these amateur emails that all I did was try and calm her down. And then she put it on her website afterwards. And so it basically, The Sun weren't very pleased. They said they wished I'd have just slammed the phone down on her. But I said she was distressed. So I needed to try and, just calm her down a little bit. I just thought, A, it's not very nice of them. And B, she was really angry. I thought the best thing to do was to try and calm her down. And so I basically got the sack from The Sun. So Heather, I believe, is a friend of Evan's. So she said she was happy that I was on board with Hacked Off. So everything in the garden was rosy, although I couldn't find these remittance devices. Then Evan eventually had a few more meetings with him, a few more meetings with Graham, and then eventually Evan got me a lawyer called Mark Lake, and he's quite an interesting guy. I believe he works for bent cops and getting them off charges. I might be wrong. That's what someone told me. And he is a very highly intelligent man. I met him in Sheraton Skyline, and he said it was a good idea for me to do this. I wouldn't get in any trouble, and basically they wanted mainly the details of when I'd spied for the Mail on the Priory. Now, I had gone to the Priory. I had private medical healthcare, and you get free therapy. So I'd gone along to the Priory and tried to get their hypnosis they have. And the hypnosis is done by a chap called Mark Collins, who does EMDR, which is basically hypnosis to try and get you back to childhood, to get recall trauma. And I have some of my memories of abuse, and not all of them, but they're in there. But a lot of them I can't reach. But I knew they needed to come out, basically, and I wanted him to reach them. To be honest, it didn't actually work because, yeah, I can't remember. I did enjoy Mark Collins, but I don't think it did work. Primal therapy, which I did in LA, works a lot more. It's a bit like Dino Rod, it does get to it, but the EMDR didn't. But I do like Collins a lot. And he sees Ruby Wax, Robbie Williams, Kate Moss, everyone. And so while I was there, I pretty much saw a lot of celebrities coming and going. And obviously, because I worked on Fleet Street at the time, people were like, oh, did you see such and such? And I'm like, yeah, I saw them in the canteen and blah, blah, blah. So they basically hacked off, wanted me to talk about that. So, yeah, I was willing to do it, and I didn't think there's anything wrong in it. And they were like, oh, help the good guys and all this kind of thing. So I suck it into thinking, yeah, well, that's right. And I don't mind confessing things that I've done in the past. Although Graham seemed to think I did other things that I didn't. And I was asked a lot of times when I worked for the press to do ABC that I didn't want to do, how I dealt with that, because I wasn't very good at sticking up for myself. I used to say, oh yeah, I've done that, but I didn't do it. I never did anything illegal for anybody, because I was always warned when I worked for ex-MI6 agencies, if you ever work for the press, don't ever do anything illegal for them, because they will always turn on you. And basically, I remember reading the Sunday Times article where the Sunday Times had hired two investigators, and they basically hired them for 3 years and then turned on them. And everyone said to me, if you're going to work for them, watch them and don't ever do anything that you wouldn't be happy super exposed. So I bore that in mind when I began to work for the media. And I always did things that I thought, if were ever revealed in court, they wouldn't make me look bad. But obviously, if you're just going to do this the whole time, then you're not going to get paid, because it's things that they could have done themselves. So I kept it quiet that I was doing things that they could have done themselves, and kind of made out that I was doing all sorts. So Graham Johnson had this view of me, but sadly, it wouldn't have gone down in court. And I said, I want to help you, but I can't basically lie and said I've done certain things when I haven't done them, because, well, there's no point, even if I was going to do that for payment from them, it was tempting, but I thought, it's kind of best to be honest. And the more time that went past, I thought, well, hang on, he has got the wrong end of the stick of this, and he's telling these people with the money that I had done certain things that I hadn't actually done, and I couldn't prove that I'd done, even if I was willing to say I'd done them, just for the sake of having a day in court and possibly selling my life story on the back of it. So even though I was at a loose end and not working, I felt that I couldn't go ahead. So I started to kind of think that I wanted to pull out and that I didn't want to do it. And then Graham backed off me, and then it was around the time when I was moving and I didn't have money to move. And Graham basically said, "Oh, I will, I'll pay for you to move wherever you want and pay your rent and just work for us." So I went along with that and I moved somewhere completely isolated. It's in a wood and it's it's just an isolated farmhouse. So I moved in there, and it was on day 3 of moving in. It's only a couple of months ago. Day 3, I was burgled, and the remittances that I had, there was about, gosh, I can't remember. I think it was about 50 of them, were stolen, along with my computers, just gone, and a camera. And jewelry that I had, stuff that I had that I bought when I was working, was left. And it's literally all the stuff, because I just moved, was in my room. And as you go out of my room, the jewelry was on the dresser. Now, I really don't believe that any self-respecting thief would have not just lifted the jewelry, especially there was a silver Gucci watch that it was just right there. I mean, and it's very fat and silver and it's beautiful. They just ignored that. That's hard for me to believe, actually. And what it is also hard for me to believe that they were really clean guys and didn't make a mess, because there was no mess. Literally, there's white carpet here, and there was not one little speck. And in fact, it was only when I couldn't shut the door properly because they had, got in a certain way. I couldn't lock it. And I had to lock it in a sort of makeshift way that I thought, oh, hang on. And then I saw that it had been prized, but when the CID officers examined it, they said there's a professional job. And so I said, well, I'm a journalist. And I think that I told them the whole damn story. And anyway, so after that, I managed to. What happened after that? I basically accused Graham Johnson of it being hacked off. He said no, it wasn't, and I said I'm not really happy with you guys. I feel like I'm a sitting duck now. I feel that you people have got me into an isolated house, and I'm just like waiting for you to come and get me. It just seemed like absurd. I thought, what next? Do I get slapped about? And I'm just waiting for that. And it's, I'm stuck here. I'm still here now. I'm actually just feel like I'm a sitting duck, and just, I don't sleep at nights. I just literally, any tiny movement outside and I'm up, I've got goddamn, iron bars by the goddamn doors waiting. If someone comes in, I'm going to put up a fight. I've had to have an ex-partner of mine stay over, and it's really, really scary because I know they're after these remittances. So anyway, I have found some more. I think there's about 50 more. And I told this lawyer that I had them and I was willing to part with them. I thought, well, let them have them, let them do what they want with them. At the end of the day, I don't care, but I can't really, say I did stuff when I didn't. So, do your best, guys. Just have them, just to get off my back. So I rang the lawyer and I was about to send them over to them. And basically his secretary said, oh, I can't do it past 7 o'clock at night. And she then, I think, went off on holiday. So I was left with these remittances, and I was quite nervous having them at the house. So I gave them to a friend of mine who took them and promptly lost them. But I think that what happened, he had told friends of his that, Hugh Grant wanted these remittances and they were worth millions to them, which they are worth millions to them. And he has a lot of army friends, a lot of, sort of drinking buddies, and they go in and out of his house. So I think one of them stole them. That is what I think happened. Although he said at the start, he said, oh, I've burnt them, I've got rid of them. But I actually, then he said later that that they were taken, he hadn't destroyed them. So I actually don't think this person would have burnt them. So I think that just one of his mates nicked them. So this is where we are at the moment. They haven't surfaced. I then we met Evan again and the lawyer up at the Sheraton in Knightsbridge, and I signed a contract to say I wouldn't ever speak about my dealings with Hacked Off, and I wouldn't ever be able to talk about it unless I had express permission from Graham Johnson, and also that I would hand over these remittances. So I signed that, but they haven't paid me any money. They were supposed to pay me £16,000. That is, and by the way, that is peanuts compared to what these things are worth. They're worth millions. So I signed it, but it hasn't been activated yet because they haven't paid me. Therefore, I am free to talk about what has gone on. And also, I'm talking about it because, quite frankly, I'm scared that I am, going to be slapped about for mucking them around. I haven't done it deliberately, obviously. I can tell they're quite serious people, so I haven't deliberately screwed them around. So what I did, I hunted around everywhere to see if I could find any more. I cobbled together 10 Daily Mail, or was it a few Daily Mail, and some were from the Telegraph, when I worked for Chris Boffey when he was at the Telegraph. So I cobbled these together and I said, look, I've got 10 or 11 and I will meet you. So he agreed to meet me. And then I had an emergency, so I couldn't meet him. And he basically got really nasty with me, threatened to come round here, which was what I was scared of the whole time, and basically kick the door down and grab them off me. So I was absolutely terrified because that was why I was giving them to him in the first place. So I cut off all contact with him, and all contact from Hacked Off, all contact from Evan and the lawyer. And then the next thing, Greg Miskiw comes into my life. Now, I hadn't spoken to Greg Miskiw since he'd gone to prison. He was the news editor who rather bizarrely stole. I introduced him to a man called John Boyle, who is a public school boy, very well off. And he basically he started working for the News of the World. Greg Miskiw had his nose put out of joint because John is sophisticated, he's successful, he lives in an £8 million house, he has houses all over the world in Aspen, he skis, he's public schoolboy. Miskiw is working class and yet arrogant, and his nose is put out of joint, and he decided then to announce to everyone that John Boyle was greedy, and instead of just backing off, he stole his office boy called Glenn Mulcair that he had trained, and then he proceeded to run this guy himself, and of course it went tits up. Because you just can't do that to somebody. John Boyle found out, and of course he then destroyed the News of the World. He destroyed the News of the World very, very easily because he has top MI6 contacts and very top cop contacts. Even a woman called Sylvia Jones, who works for the BBC, she found something out about Boyle. She wanted to do a program about it, but she said she couldn't because John Boyle is really heavily protected by the cops. So anyway, during this time, Graham Johnson had decided that he wanted to film Basis. So he had sent someone from Vice, who Graham Johnson works for, along to Basis to film me speaking and to film the others. So he basically organised the programme. Then when he found out Max Spears died, I mean, why is he watching what's going on in Basis? Then he found out, how does he know about Max Spears? Then he found out that Max Spears died, and he organised the BBC via India Rukerson to do a documentary. So he's just... This is so weird. He organised both of those documentaries. As you know, the BBC documentary on Max was absolutely terrible. It made him out to be a complete loony. And it was interesting because I had said to Graham, I'm very, very scared of Hacked Off. And he said, oh, how stupid are you? But you're one of those targeted individual loonies like Max Spears, aren't you? You people are all the same. You think you've been burgled. And think I've been burgled. £3,000 worth of stuff I had taken, not to mention the intrusion and the fear that once someone has penetrated your boundaries, they're just going to do it whenever they want. And next time, I'm pretty sure I'm in for a slap and a kick in, which is why I'm doing this show. So, what happened then? So he basically, I don't know why they're homing in on Max Beers and bases. I refused to take part in Vice. I withdrew my permission, so that is going to go out. And Greg Miskiw, out of the blue, rang me and said Hacked Off had, because he's working for them, had asked him to ring me. And then he said, "Oh, I have given them all my emails from the Daily Mail and all my emails from the Mail on Sunday. And when I was working as a freelance news agency, all my emails from all the editors on Fleet Street asking me to do illegal things. I've handed it all to Hacked Off." And I think he really sounded kind of really childish when he was doing it. I mean, his daughter is trying to be a journalist. She will absolutely, when they find out what he is doing, which they will eventually when it all comes to court, his grassing on whatever he's done, he will be unwanted in Fleet Street, and her name, the same name as his, will be mud. So he's, ruining his daughter's life in what he's childishly doing. Why do he's 70 years of age? Why doesn't he just retire? Why is he involving himself? But he said, "Oh, I work for Hacked Off. I saw the error of my ways, and I really like Nick Davies. I admire him so much." Now, Nick Davies, when I met him, was like, "I'm going to put Greg away." So it's like, I don't know. I think he said to me, "Oh, I need to tell you what happened to me when I went to Belmarsh. I was in a cell, and I wasn't in a cell with Neville Thurlback and Andy Coulson. I went with a murderer, and I was in a cell with him. And one day I will tell you what happened in that cell." Now, I don't know if he was raped or beaten up, but I'm suggesting it's one of the two, because he is just, I think he's like really flipped out completely, because what he's doing won't do him any good, his daughter any good, or anybody any good. It's kind of weird. But he has done that. And he said to me, "You should fess up those remittance advices." I said, "Well, they have got 20 remittance advices. Why don't they do whatever they're going to do with those?" And I have given the others, they aren't on the premises, so there's nothing to break in here for, apart from to slap me about. And if I do get slapped about, then we all know it's them that's done it. So there's nothing to break in here for. They're somewhere else. And if they want them, they can have them eventually. But right now, I really want a holiday from them. And he said, "No, you should do that. And by the way, why did you tell Nick Davies that we had an affair?" And because, and I'm like, "Well, because back then in those days, I was sure that we did. I'm not retarded." And he said, "No, you were a drunken fumble in the hotel." And I was pissed out of my head that night. And I was really, really upset. He said plenty of other things, really nasty things. He was on the phone to me for 2.5 hours. And it was just abuse after abuse after abuse, tearing me down, saying I was no good at my job. Well, how come I worked for Fleet Street for a decade and a half? So how come I was no good? And he said, "Oh, you were no good. Nobody liked working with you. You were this, you were that." And he said, "I'm like something small and furry that scutters around from here to there." And why did I tell Nick Davies what I told him? His ex-partner took it out on him because she didn't like me talking about him, and he didn't get to see his son, and that was my fault. And I was furry creature, small and furry. It really upset me. So I was 2.5 hours, and I put the phone down, and I had to go out with a friend I just felt really, really bad. And the bad feeling has lasted a long, long time. It's now the following week, and I still feel pretty, pretty bad. And I was talking to a friend today who said that that was part of Hacked Off, and what they were doing to me. And I said, well, how do you mean? Surely they didn't know that he was going to abuse me. And he replied, of course they did. It's part of it. Then you throw up your hands and say, you can have whatever you want. And I said, that's odd, because I was on the verge of doing that. And he said, yes, what they want. And I said, surely they're not that clever. And as I said it, I remembered it was a dream, and it was 2 nights ago, and it was only a dream. It wasn't high consciousness, because I do feel as if I'm in astral detention at the moment. For the last 3 or 4 months, I haven't had any higher consciousness experiences. I can't come out of my body. Literally, when I try to, I'm locked in a kind of almost like a container. And that has gone on for a long, long time. I did actually try and feel the edges of it, and I can feel the edges. I don't know how to get out of that, but I am in there, and it doesn't make me very happy to be on lockdown in the 3 dimension. It doesn't, but I'm getting used to it. I'm coping with it. And he said that it was part of what they were doing to me. And I thought, I wonder, is it them who's got me on lockdown? And I actually tried to speak to one of them in the astral in the lockdown, and they said, we're all, the organization hacked off, we're all extremely higher consciousness. And I thought, and then I kind of thought about Johnson and how my friend had said he's got this listening capability. And then I thought of Hugh Grant, and he's a Hollywood superstar, a god really in Hollywood. And then I thought of Evan Harris, who, when I met him, I was trying to suss him. The first time I met him, when I was trying to suss him, because I remember saying to a friend, she said, what do you think of him? And I said, I can't reach him. And she said, he was cloaked, is why. So these are people that aren't grounded in 3D. These are people that are incredibly powerful. Not only are they rich in the 3 dimension, but they also go up higher up the steps. So I'm dealing with an organization that is very, very, very powerful. And I'm like a little ant that they could squash at any moment. So that is why I'm talking about them on the show today, because I don't want to kick in. I have said I'll do what they want, and I don't deserve a kick in. So if I do get one, then you'll all be seeing pictures of me above this radio show of my head swollen and face kicked in. So that, I think, is what's on the card. So if you're going to do it, boys, come round, get it over with. Not much I can do. I'm just a woman. So, right, that is what is going on with me. I don't really understand what's going on. I know that they want to shut down the mail. Who cares about that? I don't even like the mail. But I do believe that they want to shut down the powers of the press. But the thing is, if you shut down the powers of the press, then you have a situation where evil people are allowed to go ahead. And although it does mean some people have their privacy, it also means that the evil are allowed to go on ahead and do all the things that they want to do, making me remember that I was reminding me of times with my brother, and times when my brother abused me, and just it's triggered all my trauma from when I was a child. Actually, I don't think I'm recording anymore or I'm on air anymore, which I suppose is par for the cause. So I'm going to have to shut down and open up again. So I can see that the Revolution Radio isn't connected. So I'm going to shut down and connect up again. Yeah, so it's Christine Joanna Hart, and I'm back again. Golly, I don't know where you guys left me. So I don't know how much of that you got and how much of it that you didn't get. I think I got to the point where I was talking about Graham Johnson making or being the one that instigated the BBC documentary and the one that instigated the Vice documentary on Max Spears. And so I don't really know what Hacked-Off's agenda is. Basically, as I said, I was sitting here in my house. basically as a sitting duck, and I have the last 11 remittances. They've been given to someone else, so there is no need for them to come here unless it's to slap me about. And as I said, if they want to do that, they can do that, because I am basically powerless. I have no recourse, so I just have to take that on the chin. But I have nothing to give them, because it is with somebody else. And since they have 20 remittances of mine, they can work on them. And if they need the others when they finish working on the first 20, then they can have the other 10. So I don't know why Graham Johnson got Greg Miskiw to ring me, but he was really seriously abusive to me for 2.5 hours. And basically, he put me into trauma. And somebody did mention today that they had done that deliberately. So I just say, I'm so upset. Here you are, have the remittances. And it's quite interesting, because I nearly did that, because Graham Johnson then began texting me to talk about the documentary on Max Spears. And, I just, because I'd been so traumatized, I wasn't really, I didn't have my boundaries up. Basically, just the way Greg Miskiw spoke to me, just like more or less making out I was a slut and I was easy and I wasn't valuable. My sexuality wasn't valuable in any way. And it was really, really abusive. And I couldn't believe it when I was looking at the book by Brian Cathcart on Hacked Off, and it's co-written by Hugh Grant, saying about Mosley and how he was bullied by the News of the World, because it was yours truly, Greg Miskiw, who instigated not only the attack on him because he was a Nazi. He thought that Mosley was a Nazi, and he hated him. He comes from Eastern Europe, and I hate Hitler and that bastard. Even though Max Mosley isn't a Nazi, he tried to make out he was, and he instigated the whole thing. And I don't know if they know that, but how can they pay someone money and get involved with somebody that instigated so much spite? And I remember at the time wondering how he could hate the guy when he made me dress up in leather high boots and, oh, leave the boots on, kind of thing. And I remember thinking at the time, why do you slag off that guy when that is your tastes as well? Anyway, he denied all this, and he denied ever us having any relationship apart from in the Tower Thistle, which he dismissed as meaningless. I was pissed out of my head. What a crumb, what a piece of shit. I said, I never went near you in the Tower Thistle, actually. You fell asleep and I went home. But he just really made me feel really super bad. And it brought up my sexual abuse by my brother. My brother, come the summertime, when I was, what, 7, 8, 9, it went through all those years. Um, he was older than me, adopted. I was adopted. But he used to say, oh, it's summer now. You've got to be sexy for me in the summer. That was a cue that I had to lift up my nightdress and walk backwards and forwards in front of him, dropping my nightdress and picking up my nightdress again. And it was just the most awful thing. I just used to live in dread of the summer coming, because it meant that I had to do this, lifting my nightdress, putting it down again, lifting my nightdress, and swaying up to him, and that kind of thing. Basically, having to act like a whore in front of him, and it ruined my sexuality. My brother, I didn't like him. He was a bully. He was violent to me. When I would play music, he would come in just faintly, because I only had a little faint radio. He would come in, pull it out of the wall, wrench the plug off the thing, and slam it into my legs, making my legs bleed. That was my brother. And he was favored much by my parents, and I just had to suck it up, whatever he had to dish out just to keep a roof over my head. So Miskiw, because he's the same type of person, just speaking about me and my sexuality as if it was totally worthless and something beneath his feet like shit, brought up the trauma of my brother, and I've just been feeling pretty off kilter, although I've got my kilter back today, but it's taken a good few days. And during that time, Graham Johnson was texting me and asking about, do you really want to hand over the remittances? And how's it going with the Max Spears thing? Did you see it? Oh, the Vice one's coming out soon. And it's like, what I hacked off playing at. Now, I hope I wasn't cut off earlier when I spoke about the what I think about these people. Not only are they rich in the three-dimensional world, they're connected with Hollywood. Obviously, Hugh Grant is connected with Hollywood, but they have hyperdimensional talents, all of them. They're not earthbound, people. They're operating on all levels. But I do not know what their agenda is. I don't want to get on the wrong side of them because they're more powerful than me. It seems they can put me in astral detention also when they want. It brings to mind what happened when I went to the Sheraton in Knightsbridge to meet with the lawyer and Evan and sign the contract and get the £16,000 when I was told not to speak about them, which I'm doing now because I wasn't paid the money. So, which is fair enough because I didn't give the remittances, but it also means that I can speak about them. But the contract said you are not allowed to speak about us ever unless you are given permission. Well, of course, I'm never going to be given permission. And then the lawyer said, in effect, now you've signed this, we own you. So I believe it's on quite a few different levels that they profess ownership, because I have been in astral detention ever since I have been dealing with them. So who are hacked off? What do they really want? They say they want press reform, but do they want the press totally shut down? What do they actually want? Who are the separate members? I have no idea. What do they actually want? I also have no idea. Am I out of my league? Yes, very much so. Why am I talking about them on the radio? Because I don't want to be slapped about in my own home. Might they do it? I don't know. Do I want it done to me? No, I don't. That's why I'm sharing. So I think that I was cut off. So I think this is going to be really choppy and not make sense to people. So, God, what a waste of time. I'm actually really exhausted because I don't sleep at night, and I just when I don't have my friend here, most of the time I do have protection here. I do have someone who can fight really well. So I do have that protection. But when I don't, I remain hypervigilant. So, any little twig, is a very isolated house. So that is what's going on with me. So I don't really have my sleep. So I'm tired, which made that 2-hour abusive phone call by Greg Miskiw really, really horrible. And then this creep Miskiw went on to say something about his mother, and if anything happens to my mother, you're going to get calls from the police, and I'm very high up. Sorry, we're going for a break now, so I'll come back in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hi, Christine Joanna Hart, and I'm back with my Thursday evening show. I'm not sure what to call it, so Thursday evening coming live from London. I did the first half of the show about Hacked Off, my relationship with them, and the clock stopped ticking. So I'm pretty sure when it stopped moving around in front of me that I was cut off, but I'll have to see later. And it was a shame because I was sharing about something important. Never mind. It's quite easy to hack in when I'm having a show. So I'm quite angry actually about that, but I can always do more shows about that particular subject. So I'm going to add Anna Jeoffroy to talk about the flower essences now. So let's hope that will be interesting. There she is there. So let's just bring her on. Hello, Anna.
Hi, Christine.
Oh, hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Bearing up. So we're live on air, Anna, and just to my listeners, this is Anna Jeoffroy, who has been making flower essences for many years. She's also written a book about them, and she also runs courses. Now, so welcome to the show, Anna.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. So it was quite interesting. I was talking to you. We had a long chat a while ago about the flower essences, and one thing that I remember that struck me, you said when you teach people to make the essences and they go off to make them, that you also taught them how to make angel essences. So I was like, oh.
No, right. No, I don't teach them to make angel essences, but the course that we do is not just, although my major, if you like, is in batch flower remedies, the course that I teach them is a flower and vibrational essence course. So we do look at other essences, and there are producers out there who produce essences from flowers.
Oh, hang on, Anna.
Trees.
Anna,
yep.
could you take that microphone away from your mouth, because I'm getting lots of right away, sort of pull it, because I'm getting lots of sort of, okay, that might be a bit better. Go.
Okay.
Yep.
If that's better, right. So where was I? They make the essences although we make the essences from flowers and trees and plants, there are a lot of essence producers that make essences from crystals. They make essences, they might make moon essences, there's all sorts of different energetic profiles that you can use to make an essence of. We had a conference once that we made an essence of the gathering that was there, to so that we have something to take away to remember the lovely healing sort of energy that there was there.
Oh, right. And how do you, sorry, could you put that back on again? It might be better with it on. Sorry, pop it back on. Sorry, I'm just trying to get a good sound, but don't put the thing near your mouth so much.
Right, I'll see if I can get it.
Because it was just sort of, what it's like if you talk like that and it bounces a lot, it was bouncy. So if you can move the mic.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. That is better. Yeah, leave it up there. Thank you. So how did you make an essence of the gathering?
Well, that one was quite interesting, because whereas with the batch flower remedies, we work with sun essences.
What's a sun essence? Sorry.
Well, that means that you put the essence, the flowers are potentized. The water is potentized with the flower's energy by sunlight.
Oh, I see.
And that can take quite a while.
Uh-huh.
So the one that we made at the gathering, we used the sort of the group of people around, and somebody who is sort of does have experience of working with angel essences and other things, asked for the help to sort of to potentize that particular remedy, and therefore it was potentized a little bit quicker.
Oh, right. So I know how flower essences are made because you dip the flower into the water, don't you?
Well, you can do. There's different. When Dr. Batch sort of did his recipe, if you like, he actually picked the flowers and put them on the top of the water. Now, there's a lot of producers nowadays that prefer not to pick the flower, and they put the water, and especially, for instance, orchid essences, I think, are made with the flower still attached. It's not always possible because you can't cover the water in enough flowers that are still attached. But it's all done with, great respect for the flower and, for the plants. And we would never take the flowers from an area that didn't have a plenty of them.
But I'm just wondering how you can take the essence from the meeting, because that's not a flower that you can dip in.
No, well, basically there is a vibration. So that in the same way the plants carry vibration, if you walk into a room and it has a really lovely feel, or you walk into a room where somebody's just been having an extraordinary fight, quite often you can feel it. And that's basically, it's the energetic profile that they're capturing. So it was just a little bit of everybody standing around, sending love to into this bowl of water. Some of the work that what's his name? Matsuru Emoto did in his book Messages from Water, gives us some insight as to how water can pick up vibration, it picks up sound, it picks up actually prayer and meditation, and it can also pick up shapes, so it picks up words. So if you write something underneath and put a glass of water on it, if you write the word love and put a glass of water on it and leave it for a little while, it will taste slightly different.
Oh, really? What will it taste of?
Depending on the person that's written it or whatever, it will just taste. I don't know, maybe a little. I mean, I put spirals underneath my water to help it to be more energized. So it may just taste more lively. It may just taste less. It might taste smoother. So.
Interesting. What kind of spirals? Have you got one there that we can see, a spiral?
I have got I haven't got one here that you can see, because the ones that I use under my water jugs are in a little leather pouch. It's a company that does them. The spirals are filled with energized water.
Oh, right. Weird. That's unusual, isn't it?
It's a bit. But they work. They really do make a difference to the taste of the water.
Oh, right. So you put them under how do they fit under? Oh, they're like sort of like things that you put under glasses when you put them on a table.
That's right. And then also you have the sort of energy patterns you can get that you can put underneath water, which were and quite the spirals as well are quite handy. I used to carry one in my handbag, and if I was going out and had a glass of wine and it wasn't very nice, if you stand it on it for 5 minutes, it makes it infinitely better.
Oh, interesting. What's the name of the company that does them?
Implosion Research.
Oh, right, I've never heard of that. What other things do they do?
That's mainly spirals and pieces of jewellery that are made from the spirals.
Wow, what are spirals then? Do they give it?
The spirals are what they make the spirals, and the spirals are made from little hollow tubes that are filled with potentized water. Well, it's water that's actually been spun, and it's called vortex energy.
Really? I've never heard of that. So
been around for quite a while. I mean, I came across them probably in the mid-1990s.
Really?
Doing their work, yeah.
And what is vortex energy?
Now you're starting to get into something that's not really in my field, but a vortex. Well, I say vortex. when we describe chakras, we describe vortices of energy.
Mm.
But a vortex is energy that has, in my understanding, that has been spun enough that it actually holds the energy of the spin and therefore can be channeled into using for different things. But you're really talking about some of the very new physics and new science.
Wow, but these companies have been going since the 90s.
Yep, well, when I say new stuff, there's a lot of things that are sort of becoming more known now, but there's actually people have been working on it for a long time.
Mm. And you were saying about the angel. You did say the angel, though. How would somebody make an essence from an angel?
Well, I've never done it myself.
Mm.
So I'm not in a position really to answer that.
Oh, really? You don't know?
But when we were talking, and originally what you were saying about me mentioning the angel essences, the thing is that the basic grounding that people have when they do the courses, the course that I run, it gives them a professional understanding of, as a therapist, which then if they want to go on and add in other aspects of it, so if they want to then do crystals, then they would do some training in crystals. So do you see what I mean? But I'm giving them the basic grounding on how vibrational essences work, and secondly on how their conduct, how to work as a therapist. And all the sort of background things.
Do you think there's a worry that if you use, because I like roses and I'd like to make, roses essences, but I'd always be worried, unless I was growing them myself, that the person who grew them has sort of sprayed the old insecticide.
Yeah, well, they're all very, I mean, they usually, flower essence producers would only use organic or wild flowers and not in an area which is likely to have been sprayed. So they're very fastidious about what they use. And likewise, and it's, although again this is not my field directly, but I know a little bit about essential oils, and essential oils, it's even more so, or just as much so, that they must be organic, and they mustn't, that you really don't want them to have been sprayed, because with the oils you're using, it's not even a sort of minute amount, because by the time the flower remedies have been diluted down, there's very little of the actual flower, and anyway you take the flowers, take the flower off it, but there's very little of that essence is actually in the essence you take, whereas with an essential oil you've got all the you're distilling it directly from the plant.
Is that because sometimes I feel it's a bit of a rip-off when you find out that you've got a bottle of something like a bark flower that has only got a tiny drop of from the mother bottle. I mean, wouldn't it be best to take actually take it from the mother bottle? I mean,
the principle is that actually less is more. So when you put a couple of drops of the flower essence into water, the water takes on the vibration. Now, yes, you could do it from a mother essence, but you would, it is just as good from your stock bottles.
Right, interesting. And do you need the sun energy when you're making it, or can you do it from the moon?
Well, you can use the moon, but also not if you were making a batch flower essence. You would either use the sun or you would use a boiling method. So the essences that are in his range, if you wanted to call it a batch essence, you would need to make it the same way that Dr. Batch made it. There's nothing to stop you making it differently, but it wouldn't be a batch essence then.
Did he actually boil the flowers sometimes?
It was not randomly. It was the first 19 that he made with the sun method.
Right.
And then the second 19 it was over a winter, and he made them by the boiling method.
Oh, right. So they both work equally well.
Yeah.
And if someone was going to make like flower essences themselves, do you just have to get really a glass pot, put the flowers on the top, and leave them to sort of soak in the sun?
Yes. I mean, there is, the producers are sort of slightly more reverent about it. So you would set up settle into the space. You would choose your flowers. You would tune into them. You would ask, check that they were happy to be used to make the essence. And then you would usually have a journal and sit and have a meditate on the flowers.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that to understand what that remedy is about, or that essence, you need to note where the flower's growing, how it grows. You obviously know the colours of it, the sort of the environment that it's in. What are the things that it is? What is it contending with? Is it protected? Is it and then those are the qualities that you're hoping that will go into that essence, that will be picked up by the essence. And the other thing is that with the sun essences, they do need to be in sunlight for, we usually say, between 4 and 6 hours, or until the process has finished. And of course, if the sun goes in this country, it's a bit difficult, because if the sun goes in after an hour, you might have a lovely essence there, cooking as it were, that suddenly you can't use. So, you have to start again when the sun comes out an hour later.
Does it have to be 6 hours?
It depends on the day. It depends on the heat of the sun. It depends on, usually people who are experienced doing it can usually tell when the remedy is ready.
Oh, right. How do you personally tell if it's ready?
You sometimes can see little bubbles coming up through the remedy. And when the little bubbles stop and it just calms down, it's all quiet, then that's usually a sign that it's taken on the energy that it's going to take on.
All right. Interesting. So do you think that people that make the best remedies are quite spiritually inclined?
I think they have, when we talk about spiritually inclined, I think there are different sort of levels. They certainly have a connection with nature. And a lot of people that have a connection with nature would have a connection with spirit, or the spirit, at least the spirit of nature, if not an idea of a higher spirit.
Exactly. And say you want it, because Bach himself did make essences through things like tree bark and stuff like that. I do believe.
Well, this is when with the boiling method ones, some of the boiling method ones are made from buds and twigs and bark and things from the trees at the time when they're not in flower.
Would you ever do this, make it from the bark? I mean, how do we know that it's not poisonous if you're sort of,
I think, he was a bacteriologist, he was a doctor. I think I know that he did an enormous amount of research, and I would think that he would have checked very carefully. Again, it is another reason for not drinking the mother tincture and for it being diluted down, because you take the vibration without the actual. If you look at homeopathic remedies, some of those are made from sort of, things that, they are the opposite. So if you have a snake bite, the homeopathic remedy may be made from a snake bite, from the venom of a snake, but it's been diluted down. And so with that sort of principle in mind, you're much less likely to cause any harm.
Yeah, that's interesting. And is it possible I know a lady who makes crystal, Anne Callahan, who makes the crystal essences, and she sometimes puts the crystals around the edge. Can you do that with flowers?
Yeah, yes. It's like people who make animal essences don't put the animals in the water. We had some, when we had some students, we had some dolphin essence, I think it was, that we put in, dropped a few drops into the river when we were teaching by the Thames, and some of the students were quite fascinated by, and of course we told them about flower remedies and how you make a flower remedy and you put the flowers in the water, and they were saying, how do you make a dolphin essence? And my husband jokingly said to them, well, you get a dolphin and you put it in a bucket of water and you sit around it and you meditate on. But actually what they did normally, I understand that they would go out into the sea and meditate on dolphins, and the dolphins come and swim around them, and they then tune into the dolphins and send that energy into the water.
Oh, I see. Is that what people do to when they make animal essences?
So that's what they would do when they make animal essences. Yeah, it was a while before. I must admit, animal essences were the last. Although I don't have many of them, but I found it sort of. I found that the more difficult one to understand to start with. When I was first working with essences, because it didn't sort of sit quite right. Now I understand that, you know, there are qualities that animals have that you might want to tune into. So, but that was sort of as an example of, you know, like with the crystals, you could put it around the edge. You don't have to have it in the water.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? I mean, I found it interesting today. I was not feeling that great, and I craved the color yellow. I didn't really know what that was, really. I don't know whether it is that
maybe, were you feeling a bit tired?
I was feeling tired, but it was mainly that I had a friend of, who I did think it was a friend that I hadn't seen for about 10 years, who rang me. They wanted to know something, and he was quite abusive. You know, I had remembered us as being friends and quite close, and he dismissed it as being, you know, cheap and drunken, and, you know, in rather a cruel, nasty way. But he did, you know, I think it's worse if someone's not saying it to be nasty, and it made me feel very small, very shamed, and really awful, actually, because it triggered old stuff. And I was just really craving yellow.
Well, the interesting thing is that they generally say that you can't wear yellow and be depressed.
Oh,
so
I see.
Yellow will cheer you up. It will always sort of give you a cheer up, but it's also connected to the solar plexus, and the solar plexus is quite connected to the liver. So it might have been a slightly sort of, you know, you were holding a little bit of anger there against him, which was fair enough, because given what he was saying to you and how he made you feel. Now, from a flower remedy point of view, I would probably sort of look at a concoction of remedies for you, but would possibly look at some holly, which would allow you to sort of, if there was a bit of anger there, to allow you to dissolve the anger. You mentioned about it brought up old issues. So, you know, I'd probably go down that line of looking at what those old issues are, so we could work with clearing those.
That was sexual abuse.
Then, well, in that case, that would be something that we'd sort of spend a little time sort of going into, but not going into, but looking at probably, again, age is quite relevant. Because when I link the flower remedies to the chakras, that links us again to the 7 ages of man. So depending on what age the abuse happened, then that will sort of help me to decide which group of remedies I might start with, or we'd start you with. But I would think to start with Star of Bethlehem, which is for shock. Very often people having abuse problems will, as they grow up, hold guilt. And I know there's no reason for them to be guilty, but they do feel guilty very often. And pine is a very good remedy for feeling guilty. So as you start to peel away some of the layers, you begin to then be able to face, you know, what is going on for you and how you can sort of best deal with that. But it's, you know, you're talking about issues that don't just take 5 minutes in a quick sort of, you know, oh, try this and try that.
It was when I was young, it brought up issues, like when I was 9, and my brother, and anger, and I couldn't feel the anger. I was just feeling what I kind of needed help to feel it. I was feeling a state of irritation where it's almost like the anger, I couldn't feel it. It was almost like a stuck poo emotionally, that it was hard to feel, and so I just felt irritated. And it made me think how many people must get in that position where they drink alcohol just to kind of get rid of that horrible, because it's not like a feeling, it's a pre-feeling.
Yeah, it's one of the remedies that's very good for that is a remedy called agrimony, which the sort of key, the short sort of description of it is that it's for people who put on a brave face. But it's very often the sort of negative that shows not negative, but where it can be indicated is people that tend to drink or have some sort of addiction that they that is covering up the fact that they are actually, although they always look very happy and appear to be very happy, then underneath they're not.
Oh, I see. And what does the agrimony do?
Agrimony helps to sort of connect us to the fact that actually in the present that everything can be all right, and that so that we're not giving our power away to things that have happened in the past, and to help us to connect to a level of faith and trust that things will work out.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is interesting. I did feel that I wanted to take some kind of I did think of holly because I know that is for anger, but then I did think,
the other one, sorry to interrupt you, the other one that might well be good for you would be impatiens, because the impatiens does tend to be more directly for, and when you said a feeling of sort of impatience and frustration, that would be the impatiens.
Oh, I see. What is that feeling of frustration when you can't feel something?
I don't know that it's that you can't feel something. I think that is more the Star of Bethlehem. That's shock.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons I'm so keen on the flower remedies, there's an awful lot of publicity around at the moment about mental health issues. And my belief is that if you deal with emotional issues at the time, or before you can deal with them before they develop into mental health issues. Because if you talk to most people who have mental health problems, and I'm not talking about people who have got a physical problem, but there was the other week there was a young lad being interviewed who was homeless, and they found him some accommodation, and they were talking to him about how he'd come to be homeless. And apparently when he was 15 years old, his mother had died, and he was trying to look after his two siblings, and he'd managed to do that and keep going at school. And then eventually, after a year, 18 months, he'd found it all too much. So social services stepped in, took his siblings into care, and told him by then he was over 16, and told him that they couldn't do anything for him. And he was left out on the street. Now, he's now got mental health issues. Well, that's not mental health issues. That's unresolved emotional trauma. And I think we don't give enough importance to.
Oh, of course. What is best for? What is the best remedy for him?
Again, it would be a number of them, but I would start with Star of Bethlehem, and I would start with sweet chestnut, which is for deep despair and the feeling of all is lost, to help to reconnect us. Sweet chestnut helps us to understand and maybe connect to divine providence. And one of the things over the sort of many years I've been working with these, and both the flower remedies, the reflexology, everything else, the one thing that never ceases to amaze me is how the dramas that happen in our lives, the challenges we have, for a lot of people, they would say after a while, once they've got through it, that it had changed their lives. Now, that can be for the worse, or it can be for the better. And sometimes, certainly as adults, when challenges come up, things like you might lose your job, or we lose somebody close to us or something. Actually, yes, there are people that never get over it, but there's also people who find it in themselves to develop on from it. And and suddenly life begins to work differently for you, and sometimes an awful lot better. So, but that's because at some level they've resolved those emotional reactions.
Yeah, it's difficult, as you were saying. It's hard, like what that boy has suffered, and my childhood sexual abuse. It's hard to feel it sometimes, isn't it? And you're left in that feeling of not feeling it, and it's almost like a stuck poo. You can't kind of get it out, and you can't enjoy life because you're busy with that constant. It's
trying
like
to
being bunged
overcome it.
up. Yeah.
Well, as I say, I would work from that point of view. I'd certainly work with Star of Bethlehem, which is for shock. And in your case, I would work with the Star of Bethlehem because Star of Bethlehem is very, I mean, I work with people back to birth trauma with Star of Bethlehem. And in fact, you can go beyond. You can go to gestation and the gestation period as well. But to release shock that might have happened during that time, because we do tend, and this I feel that I began to feel much more so after my husband died, is that we process emotion. If we process emotion, then, you know, we go through it and we come out the other end. If we don't, then we hold on to it, but we hold on to it in the cells in our bodies. You know, and years ago, Deepak Chopra wrote about our cells, each cell having a memory. That memory is not a memory like our heads have. It's the memory, it's an emotional memory, which is why when that guy says something horrible to you, it just brings up feelings for you because it's the emotions coming up. It's literally the cells in your body thinking, I remember that. This is what I felt like. So it's how we sort of release those emotions that have got stuck in there. And yes, it's not something one does overnight. It's something that, you know, takes time to work through. But some of the remedies, see, the lovely thing about the remedies is that each of them can be used. Dr. Batch talked in terms of, you know, you could take them hourly for something that was acute, but if it's something that's chronic, you might take them, you know, twice a day for weeks or years while you balance that emotion out. And it goes in cycles. You might think at one point, oh yes, that I'm feeling, you know, that's sorted, but then something will come back, but it's not quite the same as it was before, and maybe you'll need slightly different remedies, and then you work through that, and it's just sort of retuning. The remedies work like a tuning fork. So it's a little bit like if I was to say there was a group of us and we were singing something and somebody was singing out of tune, and we got a tuning fork to help them to sing better in tune, then when we played the tuning fork or struck the tuning fork, the people who were singing in tune wouldn't go out of tune. Does that make sense? So that's why they're very safe, because when you take one, it either attunes you, it either helps you to hear the correct note, to your cells to vibrate at the correct vibration, and if they do that, then, and if they're already doing it, it doesn't knock you off. It just allows you to do it more confidently.
I think, yeah, it's interesting what you're saying. I'm getting some thoughts come up, because the friend who I thought was a friend abusing me, it was putting down our relationship, which had been sexual, describing it as, you know, a drunken, it was a drunken fumble, and I was pissed out of my head, which made me, I mean, it just floored me completely. And it kind of reminded me of my brother sexually abusing me, because my brother used to, you know, he had that imperious thing where he would, you know, this guy really thinks quite highly of himself, so he's got that imperious quality, and my brother was like that. He was quite, sort of would lay there like an emperor and say, you know, walk up and down and lift your nightie for me, and, you know, it robbed me of my sexuality. I was never able to get my sexuality back. I, you know, was totally dysfunctional in that way. I would go for, you know, very rapey kind of guys, abusers, and I would feel comfortable with them. Whereas, you know, get a nice man and I would just run a mile.
There is a remedy which helps us to repattern, if you like, when we've got into, you know, when we're repeating the same mistake over and over again. So something has made an imprint on us and we can't get away from creating that same thing again.
Yeah.
And that's chestnut bud.
Oh, right.
And taking that for a while will help. So people who do have addictive sort of qualities, chestnut bud will help you to release some of those patterns. Again, it's not something that'll happen overnight, or it may do, but you need to keep reminding the cells and the vibration of a slightly different vibration. I would also be tempted to take, heather. There are some of the remedies that we started to work with the positive qualities of the remedies as well as the negative. And for a lot of the time, I think because Dr. Batch was a doctor and he saw people with problems, and therefore he was looking for the remedies that would help the problem. So he would talk about the indication for the problem and he would describe the negative state. We started to look also at more at the positive state. And when I linked that to the fact that sometimes when we experience something, it's because there's something in us. So when this guy is playing this scenario to you, it's because it's still in you somewhere.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And so the thing is that if you take the remedies that will release it, so it's not, rather than saying this guy's a bully and he's bullying me, you could do, but you probably wouldn't get him to take the remedy for it. But what we can do, what is empowering, is that we can take that remedy ourselves.
Right.
And I've known this so many times, and I've done it myself as well. And I have a remedy that I put together, which I won't tell you exactly what I call it, but it's my "Don't Mess With Me" remedy. And in it is willow, which is actually about, willow is we take when we're feeling sorry for ourselves, but it very often people who feel victims because when we're feeling sorry, that willow energy is very much a victim energy. So by taking willow, we help to take ourselves out of feeling that we're a victim. And then people don't treat us like a victim anymore.
Yeah,
and I've had some
did
quite
feel
profound changes in people and changes in their experiences with people. And heather is sort of in a not the same way, but heather is one of those remedies that the negative quality is that we used to have a little snapshot of it, which was emotional vampires, people that sort of stick their claws into you and suck you dry. But actually, heather is a lovely remedy to help you to be grounded and to be a good listener and to be able to, understand people. So if you take willow and heather, that's something that I would recommend as an anti-bullying thing if you feel you're being bullied.
I do.
And that would fit that one exactly for you.
Well, thank you. What do you, the feeling I had today was very much the sort of stuck emotion, feeling that there was something stuck.
There's a remedy. Now the thing is that we're pulling things out the air here, and I'm working on the basis that you're trying to you're giving me sort of various scenarios to try and see what would be there. But rock rose is a remedy in the fear group, which is for frozen fear. And so anything that feels stuck, anything that you feel you can't move forward with.
Yes.
And locks you into fear.
Yes.
Rock rose is a wonderful remedy.
Oh, right. And can it lock you into despair?
Well, despair is, anything it locks you into, it will help to release. But the despair, if you're feeling despair, then remember when I said about the young lad who'd lost his mother?
Oh, yes.
That's sweet chestnut. Sweet chestnut is for the depths of despair.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, because it's interesting as well. You just said frozen. Because today, all day, and that was why I was craving the yellow, I felt ice. Now, I felt and I tried to get to it, and I was thinking about my brother, and then I tried to get inside my body, and I felt it around my tummy area, and I could just feel meat, and I got this vision of meat. And then I remembered my mother taking me to the butcher's shop and watching the butcher, even though it made me feel quite sick. And I remember looking into her eyes and seeing that actually there was really nobody there to give me any love, and feeling that feeling of almost dropping down into a feeling of coldness and sort of ice. And I don't know if that's a kind of a giving up or what it did, but just that feeling of like ice. And I think like like there being no love kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that was why I was craving
Yeah.
warmth in the yellow, anything to make me feel warm. I
think one of the remedy that's coming to mind to me in that situation is wild rose.
Right.
Wild rose is a connection between it's in the not enough attention to present circumstances group, which relates to the throat, but those lovely pink flowers sort of connect it very much to the heart. And the negative is of wild rose is the feeling that it's not worthwhile, that there's nothing is worth it.
Yes.
And or that there's nothing there for you. And when you described looking into your mother's eyes and not seeing anything there, and when the positive of wild rose, and I love wild rose because it comes out in June, and that sort of energy of being absolutely there. It's there for the whole of June. It's gone by the end of June, but it is just so vibrant while it is there. And so the positive is that feeling of just being totally at one with life and just really enjoying being part of life. But with that heart connection. And I think that connection to sort of unconditional love from the heart is something that would be helpful.
Yeah, I guess that feeling, that ice feeling, that is probably the heart not functioning, isn't it? Because heart beating and flooding your body with blood, that's the warmth. And I suppose the cold is when the sort of heart thinks it's not worth it.
Sometimes we just have certain areas. I mean, it's like, as I say, the rock rose as opposed to the wild rose. The rock rose is that one that we talk about, frozen panic. But that one would be, and sometimes, there's times if you've got sort of digestive problems or you're a bit bloated or whatever, if you put your hand on your stomach can feel stone cold when the rest of you is warm. And that's the sort of, that's a little bit like this ice. It's like carrying a block of ice around in you. It's not necessarily, it may be in your heart.
Right.
But sometimes it can be in other parts of your body.
That's interesting. So what is the block of ice? It's frozen emotion, is it?
Probably, yes. Yeah, I mean, physiologically, it's lack of blood supply to an area.
Yeah.
But emotionally, it can also, if the cells, if we are tense and if we are emotionally unhappy, then that will create tension within us. When the cells are tense, they don't allow the movement of lymph and blood and everything that goes through, oxygen and everything that goes into the cells and out of the cells, and the toxic release and everything. And then the cells become more toxic, and then they're not functioning properly.
It's interesting. Yeah, I actually went to Neil's yard and I brought some marigold, calendula.
Calendula, yes.
Calendula oil, and I just wanted to rub it on, especially when it poured out and I saw the yellow, and I just wanted to put it on my throat, I just really wanted to do that.
That's interesting because the throat area is about change. So it's where we hold the blueprint. It's where, and it's the center of healing.
Oh, is it?
So it's interesting that you felt drawn to put it on your throat.
What does it do, that calendula marigold? What does marigold do?
Now you've caught me on the hop because I'm not too sure.
You must know everything.
No, I am, contrary to general opinion, I'm not the fountain of all knowledge. The calendula, no, I'm not. I'm not able to tell you straight away exactly what the qualities of calendula are, but it's an oil. It's also used homeopathically. A lot of the things, I mean, I use calendula that I get from Ainsworth's, who I work with, and I buy it as a cream, and it's very good for the skin. I mean, it's a soothing cream. And marigold, I think, if I remember correctly, is very soothing for the skin.
Yes, I wonder he didn't make. I mean, I drink marigold tea, which it relaxes me. So I wonder he didn't make. And would you ever make an essence with marigold?
It's interesting. I've never been drawn to, but perhaps where he was, maybe there weren't so many marigolds. I don't know, because marigolds in this country tend to be fairly well cultivated, don't they? I'm not too sure. I remember having them in my garden as French marigolds. We had sort of big pom-pom ones.
Is there an essence, like a sun essence for that, like warm, like when you sort of want warm, sort of? Do you know what I mean? Like
gorse. When you want, well, the fire, the one with the most fire energy in would be gorse.
Oh, right.
And gorse is so, and that's a lovely yellow plant. And, you know, if you look, I came back from Salisbury the other day. I'd run a workshop down in Salisbury. And as I came up the M3, on the left-hand side, just as I'd gone past Basingstoke, is it, I think, there was sort of heathland over on the left. And it was just awash with wonderful flowering gorse.
Oh, lovely.
And nothing is this, and because this is the time of the year when everything starts to sort of, all the yellow starts to come. I've got daffodils coming out and everything. And it's that, yellow is the sort of colour of spring, but it's the colour of things waking up and of energy and the fire of the building towards the summer.
Excellent. What does it do traditionally, the gorse remedy?
Well, the gorse remedy, as far from Dr. Batch's point of view, is literally a fight. It's for people who feel that they're tired and weary. I asked you earlier when you said about wanting to, when we first started, and you said that you had felt that you wanted to wear yellow or you wanted something yellow. And I immediately mentioned gorse, and because gorse is the remedy that when we feel tired will lift us. It's the it acts on the solar plexus, which is the fire chakra, and so it helps to lift that fire in us if we're feeling a bit depleted and a bit down. Great remedy if you suffer from SAD or SAD.
Oh, I do have that actually. I think that hit me today, and I was literally I had that craving for the sun and to see yellow and that. Really? So that is for the people that have SAD.
And also mustard will help with that. Another yellow flower.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
it's interesting. I thought mustard was.
Now we've established that you need nearly all of
everything. I know. I thought mustard was if you're feeling depressed and you don't know why.
Well, yes, but then again, if you're feeling sad, it doesn't take an awful lot. You know, if you're people who are describing, you know, in the winter as they're feeling tired, they're feeling weary, they maybe don't feel like going out, so they become lonely, and you know, if that isn't rectified and it's not changed, they will end up quite often feeling depressed.
Yeah, interesting. What now? You've prescribed me quite a few.
No, I'm not prescribing them for you.
Oh no, that's okay. That's okay.
Might be useful.
Do you know I have got most of them? I've got them in my bathroom, so I can go and take them now after the show.
Do try them, but you know, and if you do want to sort of, you know, have a look at maybe the order, talk through the order in which to take them off air and how to use them, and I'm very happy to do that. But it's don't. It's probably better not to just stick them all in one bottle at once. You can do a combination essence. We do mix them together, but I prefer not to do more than sort of maybe 5 together for a combination. Dr. Batch said he didn't want people using more than. Oh, he didn't say that. He said he preferred not to use more than 8 because he thought it got too complicated then, and the body didn't know what to do first.
So if I sort of picked from the ones that you've said and put, how many drops would I say put in a little Evian?
I just put 2 drops into a
each.
bottle, two drops of each,
Mm.
and then take that.
And like twice a day?
Yes, if you've put it into an Evian bottle, then pour yourself a glass of water. I would just drink from it all day to start with.
But what if you, so put the 2 drops in a big 300 ml bottle, the big sort of family size one, or would you say put 2 drops each into a small bottle and then maybe have a few?
The personal one, and then you could actually, just take a swig out of it, or not just swig. That's probably not the best way to do it, but put a little bit into a glass of water, maybe sort of 3 or 4 times a day.
Oh, I see. Not have like 3 lots, so you have 6 drops of each remedy. You think 2 drops of each remedy per day is enough?
Yep. Because when you put it into the water takes on the vibration of the remedy. So you haven't got 2 drops, you've got a bottle full of remedy.
Oh, I see. Huh.
The only thing is that you want to keep it somewhere, if you can, sort of dark, and not too. Don't leave it in a plastic. But if it's a plastic bottle, don't leave it in that for too long, because otherwise it leaches the plastic out the bottle. Especially once you've got oxygen into the bottle. And what you don't want to do is leave the bottle, or get on and off the tube with it too often, because water will. But if it's not, once you dilute the alcohol out of it, and you've got a bottle of remedy, then the remedy can be interfered with by other vibrations.
So then, isn't it best maybe to keep them at home and sort of suck them down out the dropper?
And just take. But one of the things I always say to clients: just make sure that you give yourself, pour a glass at night with remedy in it, and then drink half the glass before you go to sleep, and then drink the other half in the morning.
Oh, that's interesting. It's interesting. Well,
and then you've had 2 doses a day.
Yes.
And then you can have whatever you can manage in the meantime.
Oh, from the dropper, little spits into your mouth.
Well, I prefer not to do it direct from the dropper. I would carry the bottle that's got and put the remedy in. When you put the 2 drops in, you are putting 2 drops into your mouth. You're actually putting 1 drop of brandy and 1 drop of remedy in. Whereas when you put it into the glass, you're dissolving the brandy out, and you've got a whole glass full of remedy. So when we talk about that tuning fork, the reminder of the vibration is far more impactful on your fluid in your body, the 80% of you that is.
Interesting. We're coming to the end, so I just want to tell people where they can get hold of you before the music comes on. So your name is spelled Anna, and it's Jeoffroy. It's J for Jane, E for elephant, O for orange, F for Freddie, R for Rachel, O for orange, Y for yellow. And have you a website or anywhere that the listeners...
The website is www.energyworks, as it AENERGYWORKS.co.uk.
Oh,
and
excellent.
Then I've got if they put in WordPress, BACH, and then courses.wordpress, and that's my blog. If they want to have a look at I've got some hints and tips on that.
Oh, brilliant. Where do I get your blog from again? Tell me again.
Batch Courses, BACHCOURSES.
Right.
.wordpress.com.
Excellent. And what was I reading the other day? The Australian bush essences I was reading. What do you think of them? Just as good?
Fascinating. I mean, the thing there's lots and lots of different essence producers, and I find them really interesting. I use some of them. But in my practice, what I find, because I work with the chakra system, the batch remedies just fit in wonderfully with it, which takes me into working with the 7 ages of man. It takes me into working with something I call the ionization technique, which is about manifestation. And it also allows me to it takes me into the chakra work that I do with bereavement and the bereavement process. So, for me, I tend to stick with the batch remedies. But yeah, bush flowers are fascinating remedies, and they've got lots of really interesting things that are emotional help for conditions.
What did you say for the throat chakra? Was it gorse you said is a throat chakra?
No, that was the wild rose.
Oh, right.
But and also the the chestnut bud.
Oh, yes.
To repattern things.
Oh, right. Oh, thank you. Yes, I've written that down. Don't worry, I've got it all down.
Give me a ring off air and we'll sort it out.
Oh, I will. I'll ring you another time now because I've got to see to my son. He's been ignored for a little while I've been on air, so I rushed to see him after.
Are we on air now?
We're ending. Yes, we are live on air now, and we're ending the show. So, Anna, thank you ever so much for coming on air. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
God bless you. You've been fantastic.
Thank you to all the listeners. Cheers.
Yeah. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody, for listening. It's Christine Joanna Hart. You can find me on Facebook under Christy Ann Hart, and I've loved having you. God bless all. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Revolution